Guys, my name is Stefi. Now, I would like to tell you about phonology. Phonology is the study of speech sound. There are three kinds of phonology. The first is consonant, the second is vowels, the third is diphthongs. Let's be going to the first. The first is consonant. Consonant is point of articulation. There are some of consonants. The first is bilabial. Bilabial using the both of lips. The first is p sound. For the example is pig. The second is b sound. For example is book. The third is m sound. For example is meow. And then labiodental. Labiodental is putting the lower lips against the upper front teeth. For example is f sound. The example of f sound is fable. And then v sound. For example is value. Next, interdental. Interdental is putting the tip of the tongue between the front teeth. For example is t sound. The example of t sound is tang. And then d sound. For example is d sound is that. After that, we are going to the alveolar. Alveolar is putting the tip of the tongue against the front ridge. For example is t sound. T sound, for example is time, time. And then the sound. For example is dead. And then s sound. For example is cell. And then z sound. For example is zinc. Next, still alveolar. N sound. For example is nine. And then l sound. For example is lake. And then the last r sound. For example is race. And then we are going to the palatal alveolar. It is touching the tongue to the palate. The first is ch sound. For the example is cheek. And then sound. For the example is sit. And then j sound. For example is gentle. And then z sound. For example is measure. And then y sound. For example is yes. Okay. Next, we are going to the velar. Velar is touching the back of the tongue to the veil, to the velum. For example is k sound. The example of k sound is cut. And then g sound. For the example is gate. And then ng sound. For example is link. The last is b sound. For example is wish. we are going to the last of consonant. It is glottal. Glottal is sound articulate around the glotta. For example is h sound. The example of h sound is how. And then we are going to the second of phonology. It is vowel. Vowel is speech sounds when the mouth is open but the tongue isn't touched the teeth, the top of the teeth. The first vowel is E. For the example is skin. The second vowel is E. For the example is above. The third is A. For example is cup. And then still in the vowel is U. For example is two. And then O. For example is long. And then A. For example is God. And next is U. For example is cold. And then for example is skirt. And then for example is far. Next vowel is E. For example is she. And then A. For example is leg. And then I. For example is lake. Now we are going to the third of phonology. It is diphthong. Diphthong is union of the vowels. The first diphthong is O. For the example is rose. And then ow. For example is bow. Still in the diphthongs, it is ear. For the example deer. And then ur. For the example is poor. And then a. For example is hair. And then diphthong is a. For example lay. And then oi. For example is voice. The last is I. For example is rice. I think that's all. My explanation about phonology. I hope you will enjoy this video. Thank you.